Hello, everyone. I am Stormtrooper Gutierrez, and I am here with Raggedy Ann, also known as Mrs. Walker. Hi, Mrs. Walker.
Hi, Mrs. Gutierrez and everyone else.
Mrs. Walker, what story do you have for our Boronda Meadows families?
I have this story, Sticks and Stones by Patricia Polacco.
Wonderful. I can't wait to hear it, Mrs. Walker. Or should I say, Raggedy Ann?
Either one is fine. Either one will work. Do you want me to tell more?
Sure.
Okay. Well, this is a story about Patricia Polacco and her childhood. She uses a lot of her own experiences from her childhood in her stories. And it's a book about bullying and standing up for your friends and not letting people keep you from doing what you love.
Wonderful.
And I thought since this is Anti-Bullying Awareness Month, it would be appropriate for this month.
Wonderful. I cannot wait to hear the story. Shall we start?
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's see. Sticks and Stones. It was almost fall. I had spent the summer with my dad and grandma, as always, and normally I would be getting ready to fly back to California to be with my mother and go back to school. But this summer it was decided by my parents that I could stay in Michigan for the school year. I'd always wanted to spend a winter with my dad, and I couldn't believe my luck. Maybe at this school I'd be popular and no one would know that reading was so hard for me. My best summer friends, Helen and Marty, seemed to be so happy that I'd be going to school with them. When my first day of school came, I broke out in a red rash all over my face. Of all the times to have my face full of big red blotches. Marty and Helen stopped to pick me up to school. The three of us had ridden our horses together all summer, and I felt so happy knowing that they were my good friends. But when we got to the entrance of Williamson School, they ran squealing up to a group of other girls, and then they all snubbed me. They just left me standing there all alone. I didn't even know where my classroom was. Then a gawky-looking boy with dark horn-rimmed glasses so thick that made his eyes look as big as saucers looked over my shoulder at my schedule card. "Hey, looks like your first class is art with Mrs. Geertz. I'm going there too. I'll show you where it is," he said as he tugged at my dress. As we entered the art room, most of the tables were taken. The only one left had a very shy-looking girl sitting alone. The boy with glasses and I started to sit with her. Then a voice boomed out, "Well, looky here, sissy boy, and who's the cootie with him?" I looked around to see who he meant. Then I realized that he was pointing at me. "Those are cooties on your face, aren't they?" Then all the kids laughed, and I felt my face get real hot. "And look at who Sissy Boy and Cootie are sitting with. Her ugliness," the mean boy trumpeted as he pointed at the shy girl at our table. "The name's Tom. Not Tommy, not plain old Tom. Tom spelled with an H." Tom ignored the mean boy who was glaring at us. "She's Ravan." Tom motioned to the shy girl. "We're known as Sissy Boy and her ugliness. At your service," he chirped as he gave me a sweeping bow. "Looks like we are all in Mrs. Peterson's class together too," he added as he scanned my schedule card. "My name's Trisha," I said. I fluttered my eyelashes, "otherwise known as Cootie." Then we all giggled. "The toad's name's Billy," Tom whispered. We all crouched down and took a fleeting glance at him. He was still giving us dirty looks. During the next days, Ravan, Tom, and I became inseparable. I found out that Ravan designed her own textiles and painted them herself. I told him I had two loves, horses and ballet. My mom had me take ballet lessons back in California almost every day, but here in Michigan, my dad couldn't afford them. I didn't exactly know what Tom liked to do outside of school. I just knew that his mother took him somewhere on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and some Saturdays. I didn't know exactly why he was called Sissy Boy until one day on the playground when our gym teacher asked us to form teams for a game of softball. He picked two kids to be captains, and the captains picked their teams. Even Ravan and I got picked. But Tom just stood there unpicked. "Someone picked Tom. We're all assigned into a team," the teacher snapped. "Pick him, Cedric," I whispered to our captain. "Please pick him," I added. "All right," Cedric said with a breathy sigh. "But he can't play," some of the other kids whined. "He can't even throw a ball." As the game started, I saw what they all meant. Not only did Tom strike out in the last inning and lose the game for us, but on the third swing at the ball, the bat flew out of his hands and almost hit the shortstop. For the rest of the day, kids passed us in the hall and hissed, "Sissy boy," at Tom. As usual, he appeared to laugh it off, but after school, Billy caught up to us as we were walking home. "I hear you lost the game. You even lost the bat," he howled, and he thrust his face into Tom's and bared his teeth. Once a sissy, always a sissy. Tom had to be hurting inside, and it broke my heart. I felt my face get real hot. "It's only a game," I blurted out, "and at least he isn't an overstuffed bully like you," I added. "And remember, sticks and stones can break bones, but names will never hurt you." That outburst earned me a month's worth of elbow jabs in the halls from Billy and his lackeys. The fall air was crisp and foretold the approach of winter snowfall. The winds blew in from the north. It was a Saturday, and Tom had invited Ravan and me over to his farm. He lived in a big old farmhouse on top of a hill. It was the same farmhouse that my mom and dad had lived in when they were first married. My parents were now divorced, and so were Tom's. As I walked up the steep drive, I could see him and Ravan out in a field on the side of the house. When I caught up to them, they were both holding the most beautiful kites that I had ever seen. "Ravan made them," Tom crowed as he grinned. "I've never seen anything like these, Ravan," I said to her. She smiled and looked at the ground, blushing. "She made them out of silk and hand-painted them. Here's yours," Tom said as he put the most beautiful one in my hands. "Let's make them fly," Tom sang out as he ran, trying to catch the wind in his kite. We all ran with our kites until they caught the wind. The kites rose, the string on our spindles making a whirring sound. When we pulled on the kites, they darted higher. When we relaxed the string, they dove and circled. Then Tom started running across the pasture with his kite skimming the tall grass. It was almost as if he were flying. Later, we staked the kites and lay in the tall grass and watched them soar. Ravan hardly ever spoke, but when she did, she always said something that came from deep inside. Cumulus clouds above rolled and made shapes that we called out to one another. "A ship, a four-masted schooner," I called out. "On the tossing sea," Ravan said quietly. "People on the deck," Tom said. We watched that ship sail across the sky through our glorious kites with their streamers moving like jellyfish in the sea. "Those people, they're best friends, just like us," Tom said. "I wonder where they are going," I mused. "Who cares? They're together. That's all that counts," Tom said as we clasped hands. Most of the leaves of fall had fallen. Nights were getting cooler, and the scent of coming snow was in the wind. Halloween night had arrived. It was a Thursday, but Tom was home. He invited Ravan and me over to his house to start trick-or-treating there. He wanted to tell us what he was going to be. It was the first time I'd ever been inside his house. I kept thinking that something should be familiar to me, but it wasn't. "Come on," Tom called from the top of the stairs. Ravan and I rushed up. "So this is your room," I said almost in a whisper. Since we used to live there when I was little, I wondered if it had been my room once. The walls were covered with posters from ballet companies all over the world. In his bookcase were magazines that I recognized as the kind sold at ballet performances. I picked one up. "This is the Sadler's Wells Ballet from England. I have one just like it," I said. My mother had taken me to see the Sadler's Wells Ballet in San Francisco when I was only 8. Tom pointed. "Look, there's Margaret Fontaine and Maura Shearer. They are the finest dancers in the world." "Maura Shearer was in my favorite movie, though," I started to say. "Red Shoes," Tom finished my sentence. Suddenly I knew where Tom went on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and every other Saturday. "Do you dance, Tom? Do you take ballet?" I said as I touched his hand. He looked intently at me for a minute, then he laid right into the air and pulled his toes in perfect points. Ravan smiled. She had known all along. I thought it was wonderful, but I wondered what Billy would do or say if he knew. It was getting dark outside and it was time to dress for Halloween. I wore an old suit of my dad's and make up my face to look like a hobo. When Ravan put on a flowing dress of silk she had sewn and hand-painted, I couldn't believe my eyes. When she pulled her hair back and clipped it, she was beautiful. Then Tom walked in. He was in the middle of a wicker basket that had holes for his legs, wrinkled clothes hanging out. "I'm dirty laundry," he chirped and danced across the room. Every house we went to, people oohed and awed over Ravan's dress. They liked my costume too, but everyone thought Tom's was the most original and the funniest they had seen. After we collected as much candy as we could carry, we started home, laughing and teasing one another about who had the most candy. We were almost to Tom's when Billy and his toadies jumped out from behind Mrs. Adams' old Ford. "Hey, look, it's Sissy Boy, her ugliness and cootie," he sneered. We tried to walk by him, but he blocked our way, and he and the others grabbed their bags of candy. Thank you, sissy, Billy oozed, and he gave Tom a big shove. Tom just stood there. I said, thank you, sissy. He shoved Tom again. Still, Tom didn't move. I didn't know where my voice came from, but I found myself screaming at Billy, leave him alone, you great big bully. Pick on someone your own size. Billy's beady little eyes drilled holes through me. When the light flicked on Mrs. Adams' porch, he sneered at me one last time and ran away. I just knew that Tom was really going to be in it for now. The Christmas holidays went by as they should. I don't think I'll ever forget the evening when Tom and his mother took Ravan and me to see the Nutcracker Ballet in Lansing. The four of us sat huddled together. I looked at Tom's face from time to time. His face was full of wonder when the mice were dancing and fighting the wooden soldiers. And when the Sugar Plum Fairy danced in a line across the stage, I don't think I'd ever seen pure rapture in someone's eyes until then. In February, when the Valentine box was opened and Valentines were handed out to every kid in class, Tom only got 2 from Ravan and me. What? He whispered to me. No Valentine from Billy? He grinned. That was Tom, turning a bad situation into an okay one. How I admired him. It was a cold winter and the whole school was abuzz about the production the school put on at the end of every year, the talent show. Just about everyone put together some sort of act. Dancers, singers, builders, tumblers. The show was so big, even parents came. Ravan, Tom, and I weren't sure if he would be in the show or not, if he wanted to be. But we liked to sit in the bleachers in the gym after school and watch the other kids practice. Tom always had something encouraging to say to almost every kid that performed. Good job, Cheryl, he said after she tap danced. Hey, Danny, you nailed that balance beam. One day after rehearsal, we were in our usual place in the gym when the coach set up bars for the track team to practice the high jump. Billy was the captain, and his main claim to fame was a high jump. But after he cleared the 5.3 mark up to the 5.9 mark, he rushed to make runs at the bar and missed it again and again. Billy, the coach said, you have to nail this. This team has a chance at the state finals. It's only a quarter of an inch more. I'm asking you, the coach seemed annoyed. Billy tried again and missed. I could see Tom watching. When practice was over, Tom, Ravan, and I climbed onto the gym floor. Then, all of a sudden, Tom took a run at the high bar and leaped over it with 6 inches to spare. He was in a complete split as he sailed over the bar. See what ballet can do for you? Tom sang out as he landed. It was then that we realized that Billy and the coach had not left the room. They both heard what Tom had said. Ballet? Ballet or not, kid, why haven't you tried out for the team? The coach asked. Billy's fists were white from squeezing so hard. Tom's face was red. I was just fooling around, he stammered. He grabbed his book bag and made for the door. The coach kept trying to call after him, but Tom didn't turn back. We were almost home and Billy suddenly straddled the sidewalk in front of us. He was alone this time. He jumped Tom and pushed him to the ground so hard that his glasses flew off. My glasses! I can't see without my glasses, Tom pleaded. Billy picked them up and held them in front of his face. You mean these, you little priss? You little butterfly ballet dancer? Billy said in a mocking, whiny voice. Wait till I tell everyone at school. Please, my glasses, I need them, Tom begged him. They're the only ones I have. With that, Billy dropped them and stepped on them, grinding them into the ground. Then he laughed and ran away. For the first time, I saw Tom cry. He sat down on the curb and tears ran down his face. Mom won't be able to get me new glasses for a long time. She just can't. They're so expensive. Ravan and I sat with Tom between us, not knowing what to say. Suddenly, his face changed. And I realized how handsome he was without his glasses. He had beautiful dark eyes. I'm going to be in the talent show, Tom said with real resolve. Will you dance, Tom? I asked. Tom wiped tears out of his eyes. Yes, he said. Yes, I am going to dance. As the days passed, Tom practiced and practiced to dance. He had danced in a performance the year before. Tom's mother had taped his glasses, but he couldn't dance in them very well. So Ravan and I helped him block out the space on the stage because he couldn't see well enough to be sure where he was stepping. When the big day arrived, Ravan helped him into his costume in the closet so that no one would see him until he stepped on stage. I stood just in front of the stage on the gym floor so I could warn him in case he came too close to the edge. I gave the record to the person who was going to turn on the phonograph for Tom's dance. Finally, there was a hush. The annual spring program commenced with Frida Harding's tap dance. Then Jessie DeWitt, the bird calls. The girls' glee club sang 3 selections from Oklahoma. The principal made a boring speech which was followed by 2 really dumb skits by the boys' athletic club. Then, just before Tom, the pom-pom girls did a routine they called Dazzle Dazzle. Then it was time. Tom was on. The The empty stage was dimly lit except for one spotlight in the middle of the backdrop. The band cued the music. First they missed a track, and then there was a loud scratching sound. Then the melody from the ballet Swan Lake echoed from the wings. Tom stepped into the spotlight. He was dressed all in white in the classic costume of Prince Siegfried from Swan Lake. He seemed to be glowing. Then Billy jumped up on his seat and called out, "It's Sissy Boy!" A girl shrieked, and then some boys gave cat calls. Finally, laughter resounded as what seemed like hundreds of students stomped their feet on the gym floor. Tom began to dance anyway. The laughter was so loud that the record could hardly be heard. But Tom danced, perfect pirouettes, spinning like a top. He was so graceful, so elegant. He was the Swan Prince. Someone reached in and took off the music, but Tom didn't stop. He didn't even need the music. His leaps were high and powerful, athletic. At times, he looked as if he were suspended on a wire. Tom kept dancing. The catcalls and the laughter and jeering started to die down. Tom kept dancing. He leaped and turned, making sweeping steps across the stage. Finally, there was complete silence. All that could be heard was the shuffle and thumps of Tom's feet landing on the wooden stage. Then, before it was even over, there was the sound of a single person clapping, then another and another. The room exploded. The thunder of the clapping moved in one huge wave toward the stage. Tom finished his dance with a grand leap, landing in the center of the stage. Then he bowed. One by one, kids rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Soon the entire auditorium was standing. The sound of their whistles and cheers was deafening. Tom received a standing ovation that lasted a full 4 minutes. I counted. When I gave him his glasses his mother had taped together, tears rolled down my face. "Tom, I've never seen something so brave in my life," I sobbed. "I was so worried when you said you were going to dance today, but you showed them. You showed them, and they loved you too." No one ever laughed at Tom again, and the only name they knew him by was Tom. Not Tommy or Tom, T-H-O-M, Tom. I returned to California after that summer and resumed my schooling and my own ballet classes there. Every summer when I returned to Williamston to see Dad, I always made time to see Tom and Ravan, and they made time for me. The last the three of us were together was the summer of our 18th birthdays. At the end of that summer, just before I left, we all stood on that windy hill above Tom's house. I was set to go to art school in the fall. It turned out I did that better than ballet. Ravan was going to apprenticeship with a dressmaker in Chicago. Tom had been accepted to a New York ballet school. We clasped hands. We didn't say anything. There was no need to. We knew that moment would be in our hearts as long as we lived. And then here's an author's note from Patricia Polacco. Dear readers, it's hard to believe that Tom's dance was over 50 years ago. He still lives in New York City and is now retired as the artistic director of the American School of Ballet. Ravan lives in Paris and is retired after an incredible career as a fashion designer. As for Billy, I just hope that he outgrew being a bully because there is no place in a kind world for bullies. Then there's me. Well, you already know what I do. I make books just for you. I'm grateful that I can, and I'm grateful for Tom and his story. It pleases me that you will know him now. Oh, and one more thing. If you are the kind of kid who marches to a different drum like Ravan, Tom, and me, step high. Stretch your stuff with courage and goodwill. That cadence will take you to places that your heart aches for and where your dreams dare to lead you. Your heart knows the way. Patricia Polacco.
What a wonderful story, Mrs. Walker.
Isn't that awesome?
It's a beautiful story, and we do have a lot of young boys, I wonder, a lot of young boys that would like to learn how to dance or do ballet, and there absolutely is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think that's very beautiful when there are young boys that would like to become ballet dancers or any type of dancing for that matter.
I agree, definitely.
Mrs. Walker, are you ready for the Halloween speed round?
I am. Bring it on.
So the first question is, trick or treat?
Trick.
Favorite costume you have worn or seen someone else wear?
Oh, I think my favorite costume, I was an alien when I was little. It was like it had this blow up thing on top of my head. And if I can remember correctly, my mom painted my face yellow. I think that was my favorite costume that I can remember.
Right on.
Yeah.
Favorite candy?
Well, as all my students know, I've never met a chocolate bar I don't like. I love bottle caps. I love orange gummies, the orange slices. and Snickers and anything that's Hershey's.
Nice. What is your favorite Halloween themed book?
I think I would have to say the Legend of Sleepy Hollow with the Headless Horseman, because one of my teachers read that to us when I was in elementary school, and that story has always been one of my favorite Halloween stories as I've gotten older, and I love reading that to my students as well.
Do you pledge to stop bullying?
Absolutely. I was a victim of bullying myself, and I don't tolerate it at all.
Finish this sentence. An upstandard is...
someone who stands up for other people who are being bullied.
Boronda Meadows students are...
they make good choices, are problem solvers, and they're problem solvers, make good choices. I am drawing a blank.
Oh, no worries. Those are good. Those are two really good answers. What's your favorite way to make a new friend, Mrs. Walker?
Let's go up to them, smile, and just start a conversation, say, and tell them my name, and just find out something about them, and kind of find out what are some commonalities between myself and that person.
Wonderful. And the last question, Mrs. Walker, or should I say Raggedy Ann, how do you like to be included?
Well, I like it when, this is a tough one, because there have been many times where I felt excluded, and it never feels good to be excluded. I just like when somebody asks for my input, or for my advice, or if I would like to join them for lunch, or just someone to extend the invitation to me and say, would you like to join us? Or, how would you like to do this? Trying to think of some other ways.
Those are really good ways, by the way.
Thank you.
I agree. I agree with all of them, Mrs. Walker, and I have also experienced, unfortunately, times where one is being excluded. It's a very, very terrible feeling. So I want to make sure that our students and our staff also feels included in what we are doing here at Boronda Meadows. Always. Mrs. Walker, is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude your amazing read aloud of Sticks and Stones?
I just want to tell all the students out there, whether you're at Boronda Meadows or another school elsewhere, don't let anybody stop you from doing what you love just because they might make fun of you or call you names. You know in your heart what you love and the kind of person that you are. So like Patricia Polacco said, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. And don't let those names ever hurt you, because there are people out there who love you and care for you.
Beautiful message and a beautiful way to end this read aloud. Mrs. Walker, can we do Go Hawks on the count of 3?
Absolutely.
All right, 1, 2, 3, go.
Go Hawks.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker.
Thank you.